Hello Internet, welcome to the channel. My name's Frankie and in this video we are building a habitat for our first animal from the Twilight pack, the raccoon. That's right, in this video we're going to be building a habitat for the raccoon, and that will be bringing our Temperate Hills to an end. This is the final enclosure for this part of the zoo. So this weekend you should expect to see a tour video of this area of the zoo, and the entire zoo will be available on the console workshop for those of you that want to download it and have a little explore yourself. Now, getting back to the actual habitat build, I'm going to be placing down the barrier to begin with, and the barrier type that I use is red brick, and I'm not entirely sure why I picked this one. It's very different to the barriers that I've been using so far in this zoo. It's mainly been the wooden barriers in this part of the zoo in particular, but I decided to go for red brick and I think it looks quite nice, honestly. It's not something that I would consider using very often, but I think because it's going to be so short, it's going to look a lot better. If it was like 8 meters tall, personally, that would really annoy me. As I come from a background, well, no, I did work in construction for a good few years, specifically in brickwork. I know that walls that high would need piers and stuff that are a bit more than what we've got here, supporting piers, I guess. So yeah, the technicalities of how to build a wall would annoy me a little bit too much to make something so tall out of red brick, which is why I've been reserving it for a shorter wall like this. And what I'm going to do is create a basic curved kind of irregular shape. I like to keep the shapes of my habitats fairly irregular. Kind of like a steak or a kidney bean, that kind of shape is always pretty good. And when I say steak, I do mean those cartoony steaks with like a bone in it and stuff. The classic kind of meat shape. Kind of like the one in Madagascar, the lion, is it Alex? Alex the lion? The one that he's always dreaming about. Okay, I'm already rambling and we're only a few minutes in. At the front of the habitat, I'm going to be dropping the wall down to the lowest height, which is 1 meter. I really like the idea of having the front being quite low and the rest of it being a normal height, as in 2 meters tall, which will allow the guests to see into the habitat quite nicely without having to add any windows or anything. And because it's non-climbable, the animals won't be getting out. Now, an issue that I experienced with adding the raccoon to the zoo is because it's the first day of the Twilight pack being released, there were none available in the market. It took me hours, and I do mean hours, in order to get a single raccoon. So once I built this part of the habitat, there wasn't too much I could do because the way that I normally build them is add the animal and then alter the terrain according to their needs. But I wasn't entirely sure what their needs were. So it took a good few hours after this point in order to actually continue this build. Saying that though, there were a couple of things that I could do whilst I waited, and one of those is to add a natural resource. If you've been watching my videos for a little while now, you know that I love to have a natural water source opposed to a water bowl or water pump. So what I'm doing is digging a little hole in the middle of the habitat, seeing what it looks like with water in it, and then altering it accordingly. I decided I wanted this to actually be a lot smaller than I initially went for. I don't want it to be a massive pool or pond actually. I want it to be broken up into 2 smaller ones that were a little shallower than what we normally go for. Just to make sure that this habitat isn't primarily water focused, if you know what I mean. In such a small habitat as I've built here, which I'd just like to point that out actually, I do not normally build habitats this small, so this is a fun little challenge to make something quite compact and yet efficient. So yeah, when a habitat is this small, the water source can easily take over. It can really take up quite a lot of the floor space and therefore kind of become the focus of the habitat, and I didn't want that to happen. So it was just a matter of changing the terrain, going back and forth, testing it with the water in it and without it, just to make sure that I was happy with what we were getting. Another thing that I can do whilst I'm waiting for the raccoons to enter the market is to place some education boards. I end up only placing 1 for this habitat, but what I'm going to do is placing it on the brick wall at the front where the guests are going to be looking over, and then just getting it at a nice angle so that it's easy for the guests to see and it's not just facing the sky, because that'd be pretty difficult. I'm also going to place a donation bin right next to this education board to make sure that we can get some donations for our wonderful cuddly raccoons. And all I'm going to do is copy and paste it from Wolf Rock over here, because I've got a custom colour setting on these donation bins. I don't want that generic blue one. I'm thinking I might change the colours for the donation bins based on what section of the zoo we're in. So this temperate zone is all very green and it matches the environment that we've built here. I'm thinking maybe for the Africa kind of area, it would be oranges and yellows, that kind of thing. So if you've got any suggestions on areas for the zoos and animals you want to see included, please drop that in the comments, as at the moment, I'm not entirely sure where to go from here. I know what sections I want. I want an Africa zone, a tropical zone, and potentially a snowy kind of area. I'm becoming more and more keen on this as more animals being added to the game. Now that we've got the king penguins, I'm just, very keen on it. And as you can see, we eventually did manage to get a raccoon. So now with the arrival of this fluffy little boy, we can start to do the terrain alterations and start to work on the foliage distribution as well. Now, fortunately, these guys only really want a bunch of short grass, which is lovely, because I was expecting to have to use quite a lot of soil, which is what I placed down initially before the animal arrived, just to kind of get ahead a little bit. And it turns out they want a lot of short grass, which is great, because I love the colour that actually adds to the habitat. It makes it look a lot less dead and dreary, I guess. The first thing that I do in terms of placing plants is to pick a few trees and add them to the back of the habitat. As usual, I like to have the foliage a bit thicker at the back to add a bit of immersion to it. Don't place them on the wall. Trees on the wall just doesn't work. We'll get rid of that. Something that I did try to do is to build a custom sleeping box. These kind of animals are often seen, and when I say these kind, I mean the cute fluffy little animals. So raccoons, red pandas, binturongs, coatis. When you go to a zoo, they are commonly seen in these, what I'm thinking of as nesting boxes, which are wooden boxes that are normally suspended in a tree or something for them to sleep in. And I wanted to try and make one of those using the new Twilight pack building materials. And I would just like to say the building materials for this pack are lovely. Some of them are really, really nice, and I look forward to doing something a bit more themed later on. And just before I actually did build this nesting box, I added a lot of broken trees. I thought that would be quite a nice theme to have a lot of broken, fallen trees and stuff for the animals to climb on, because these guys do like a good climb. They're not only living in bins, they actually do climb trees and stuff. So, yeah. Right, now I'm going to show you super quickly, because there's no point really wasting time on it, my nest box build. And the reason I say about wasting time on it is, whilst it does look really nice, and I am really happy with these wooden components from the Twilight pack, I think I actually did make something that looks quite nice. Unfortunately, the animal did not register it at all as a hard shelter, so eventually I ended up deleting it and replacing it with a standard Planet Zoo blueprint shelter. There's nothing wrong with doing this, I'm a little bit disappointed because I was really enjoying making this nesting box. I'm going to try and play about with this in my own time when I'm not recording, to try and figure out how to make one effectively, and hopefully you'll see it in a future habitat, like maybe in the Africa zone or something. Anyway, once we have moved on from that disappointment,
I'm still enjoying it.
The next thing I do is to continue placing all of the plant life and rocks and stuff, and you know me, there's plenty of rocks around the water source, and there's a really dense coverage of plants around the base of the trees and stuff. I really want this habitat to look like it is in the midst of a forest. There's going to be a lot of ground coverage. It's going to be nice and lush, this habitat. Not so much flowers, just a lot of greenery. There will be some flowers obviously, but not quite as many. So yeah, just sit back, relax and enjoy. When it comes to placing the enrichment items for these animals, fortunately there's quite a lot of crossover. With other animals that I've already researched for my zoo, I've unlocked quite a lot of enrichment items for this animal. And something that, well, my personal favourite of the items that this thing can have, I say thing, the adorable raccoon, sorry, very disrespectful towards the raccoon. The favourite of mine, of the enrichment items that the raccoon can have, is a rubber duck. And I'm quite jealous that they get a rubber duck this big. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say on the enrichment items, really. And with those enrichment items placed and the new bedding put in place, the new shelter, this habitat was done. Thank you so much for having watched this rather short and small habitat build. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and maybe subscribing to the channel to see more videos just like this in the Floki Wildlife Park. Remember to check back in on Saturday to see the Temperate Hills Zoo tour. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.